Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. We got a big mega episode here today. I'm talking my favorite fantasy football sleepers 2020 top 20 list here for you guys to dive into and make sure you guys look at these guys in your fantasy football draft and consider drafting them. Because again, the mainstream and the consensus analysts are sleeping on them. Huge value. Fantasy football sleepers 2020. Big episode. I got a list of 20 guys. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Josh Jacobs, and you're listening to the Fantasy Football Counselor.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. We're talking top 20 fantasy football sleepers for 2020. Big episode here. I love talking fantasy football sleepers. I really genuinely do, because the guys I've handpicked here for you are in an absolute prime position to succeed. When I say prime position, I mean like these guys could finish top 10. Now, not all of them are going to be hit type of jackpot kind of players, but there's a ton of upside for these guys, and the mainstream are sleeping on them. So I want to give you guys a little bit of background here with fantasy football draft strategy, what the mainstream does. And I'm surprised no one's talking about this. Why? Because they're all sheeps and they're all kind of in this herd together, right? So what the mainstream actually do is they all kind of come together. They put these BS copy and paste rankings. The reason they do that, the reason they tell you to draft the same players that finished on top last year, they tell you to draft them pretty much in the same order they finished, is because they want to play it safe. They're afraid to take chances. They don't want to look bad. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year, I said Landry is better than Odell. Landry will finish ahead of Odell. Don't draft Odell in the first round. For an analyst to say something like that, it would be a hot take. It would be bold. They would stand out. For me, I said Odell sucks. I mean, I can come out and say it. And that's why I love the freedom of my podcast. And I can be diverse like that. I can tell you, like, hey, guys, don't be afraid to draft Landry before you draft Odell. I said that last year, and Landry finished ahead. I said stay away from Damien Williams round 2. I said stay away from Le'Veon Bell round 1. And this is the advantage you guys are getting here. So make sure you guys subscribe and leave a thumbs up. And this is why I love sleepers so much, is because I can tell you guys that these guys could really boom, could finish top 10. Again, some of them, not all of them. And you can get these guys for value while the mainstream are drafting based on ADP, and you're light years ahead of the competition. It's insanely effective, my strategy, I'm telling you. And I want you guys to crush it. Again, I'm not doing the cookie cutter rankings, and that's the advantage. So make sure you guys subscribe. And of course, in the comments, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think of the sleepers as I go through them. Would love to hear your feedback. All right, so let's get into this, guys. Before I do, I want to talk to you guys about the 16-round draft solution, the first ever and only video training. There is a link here below, guys. Get the 16-round draft solution. Give you my sleepers, breakouts, everything you need. It's the unfair advantage. Head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com as well if you're listening in the car. Or, guys, of course, there's a link here below. I've pinned it at the top of the comments here on YouTube or in the body of the message in the text below. This is the game changer. I'm very proud of it. And my flagship course, 16 rounds, priced so everybody can get it. I want everybody to win their leagues. Scrap the draft kits and the cheat sheets. This is the game changer. Head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Love, love, love this. All right, the top 20 sleepers. Let's go into this. I spent a lot of time writing this article. It's like 4,000 words. I went through each and every sleeper. I've handpicked these guys. Now, there's more sleepers in this. It's not limited to this list, but these are the ones that really kind of popped out at me and they're on my radar. So I'm going to go through it. I've got the article. If you guys want to read the article directly, head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. It's on the home page there. You can see it. Just Google Fantasy Football Sleepers Counselor and that article should come up. And a lot of time into this. All right, the first guy here. Again, the mainstream are sleeping on these guys, so don't be afraid, guys. Do not be afraid to draft these guys. People were all afraid a couple years ago to draft George Kittle ahead of, not necessarily ahead of him, but get George Kittle and not draft Gronkowski. I said stay away from Gronkowski round 1 a couple years ago. Get Kittle later. People are like, Joe, I'm scared of Kittle. Kittle outdid Gronk. Last year, I said stay away from Damien Williams. Henry will finish ahead of Damien Williams. Like, Joe, but we don't trust Henry. Everyone's telling us Damien Williams round 2 early. I said, no. Do not trust Damien Williams. Years to wow him. Not wowed. Stay away from him. And people thought I was nuts that I had Derrick Henry ahead of Damien Williams. Sure enough, how did that turn out? So when I'm looking at these guys, I'm looking at volume. I'm looking at opportunity. I'm looking at depth chart. I'm looking at talent. I'm looking at the whole kind of umbrella of what they're under here to tell you guys that they're in a good position to succeed. So let's dive in. Number 1, David Johnson. Listen, this guy was number 1 fantasy running back in 2016. He had some fluke years. He had the wrist injury. Then he finished top 9 the year after, which isn't bad amongst running backs. And then the last year, he had a coach that didn't believe in him. David Johnson in a prime position with the Texans to succeed. Let me remind you, Carlos Hyde sucks. He was on the Texans last year. I think he had just over 150 fantasy points, over 1,000 yards, 242 attempts. 242 attempts, guys. This guy sucks. And he had 242 attempts. David Johnson is a far superior running back. He's going to get more than 242 attempts. Let's say he has a floor of 280 attempts. He's going to be involved in the passing game. He's going to get a ton of volume. And there's no other running back in there that's going to take the volume. Not Duke Johnson, not anybody, not nobody. Okay? He's the workhorse, and the Texans gave up a lot to get him. DeAndre Hopkins example. Cough, cough. All right, so I want to emphasize that the Texans believe in David Johnson. David Johnson believes in David Johnson. David Johnson is going to be playing with the chip on his shoulder. When you are looking at any type of player, any type of running back, even wide receiver, look at the talent around them. If the talent around them is far superior, far less inferior, right? So they're far below them in talent, right? So David Johnson's here, Duke Johnson's here, right? If they're far below them and you don't see a type of committee, then go for that player. I'll give you another example where it's not a good situation. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, okay? Look at the situation here. And Kareem Hunt's one of the sleepers here. When you look at Nick Chubb, he's being drafted in the first round. Very, very expensive. If you look at Kareem Hunt, equally as talented, probably even better. He was a rushing leader in 2017. People forget that because, again, the mainstream are buying the recency biased, okay? So when you look at Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, pretty equal. When you look at Duke Johnson and David Johnson, bigger gap. So this is a very big fantasy football draft strategy when you are looking at any type of player. Look at the talent around them and make sure that the talent you're drafting is far superior than the talent below them, okay? Very, very important. So David Johnson's my first sleeper. Coming in number 2 here, David Montgomery. Similar situation where the talent is far superior than the talent with them. David Montgomery is a much better running back than Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen is a pass-catching scat back that can't even catch the ball, led the team in drop passes. So when I'm looking at David Montgomery, I'm seeing a ton of opportunity. Now, last year, 242 attempts, and he finished 24th in PPR. Nothing to get excited about, but I will tell you this. The guy averaged 3.7 yards per carry and just under 1,000 yards, and they weren't really where they needed to be in regards to their mindset with running the ball. Mitch Trubisky was kind of finding his own. They've got Nick Foles there as well. They could come in and actually help David Montgomery a little bit more. I think they're going to focus a little bit more on the run game, and David Montgomery is going to be a beneficiary. Now, I was talking with a guy who is like a doctor, and he is working. He's like a trainer, doctor type thing. I don't know his exact PhD type credentials, but I will tell you, he knows David Montgomery personally. He was at David Montgomery's house, and he is training with David Montgomery. So he's telling me that David Montgomery is working on his top end speed. He's going to be a lot more explosive. He's going to be set. Now he's going to come into his own. And another situation where no one else is there. And you can get, going back to David Johnson, you get David Johnson in the 4th round. You can get David Montgomery even later. You can get him in the 5th round, sometimes even 6th round. This is absolutely insane where you're looking at David Montgomery, and he is a fantasy football sleeper, and he's primed to succeed. I would rather have David Montgomery than Nick Chubb this season, straight up. I'm telling you right now, especially based on the value. Are you kidding me? Give me David Montgomery all day, okay? Continuing on with the top 20 sleepers. Coming at number 3, Kareem Hunt. I can get this guy 5th, 6th round. Sometimes he falls later. Sometimes he comes off earlier. But when you're looking at this, we talked about this as a straight up 50-50 split. In fact, Kareem Hunt outscored Nick Chubb, guys. Let me repeat this. Kareem Hunt outscored Nick Chubb in 2019 when they played together in 6 out of the 8 games. 6 out of the 8 games in PPR, Kareem Hunt outscored Nick Chubb. Let that sink in if you're considering drafting Nick Chubb. And the mainstream will continue to tell you to draft Nick Chubb in the 1st round, which is the worst thing you could possibly do. They are buying that recency bias on last year and telling you to draft him. Stay away from Nick Chubb. For God's sakes, get somebody more consistent. Coming in number 4, love this guy. The guy I'm talking about is Alexander Madison. Why do I love him? He only had 100 attempts, Joe, last year. Why do you love Alexander Madison? They've got Dalvin Cook there, Joe, last year. going back to my analogy of the talent being far superior than the other ones, I actually think, I'm going to go on record and say this, that Alexander Madison is better than Dalvin Cook. I'll tell you why. Dalvin Cook plays safe, and he's gingerly, and he's not durable. Madison is a more robust, stronger running back that can achieve similar or better results under center. Now, again, I like the crazy talk. Put me in a straitjacket. Last year, everybody said Odell is better than Landry. Who outperformed who? Yeah, that's right. Silence and crickets. Landry outperformed Odell Beckham, yet everybody thought I was crazy. And again, Derrick Henry. Who's better, Derrick Henry or Damian Williams? Everybody said Damian Williams. I said Derrick Henry. I don't look so crazy right now. So, yes, it's a bit of a hot take here, but listen, Alexander Madison is going to be the starter next year when Dalvin Cook goes down, and he will. Well, Joe, how do you predict injuries? How could you say that? How could you say that about Dalvin Cook? You know, you can't do it. He's a top 4 running back, they say. Well, I'll tell you something. Dalvin Cook is not a top 4 running back. He has not finished a season in his entire career. 3 seasons, he's 0 for 3. So if I'm, talking to somebody, they've lied to me 3 times, I'm going to guess the 4th time they talk to me, they're probably going to lie to me again. Dalvin Cook played, blew his load, and he wants that mega contract. He'd always gravitate to the outside, the sidelines, and that's what he would do. Listen, I don't trust Dalvin Cook as far as I can throw him at all. Alexander Madison will get the start at some point in the 2020 fantasy football season, and he's a big sleeper he'd get in the 10th round or after. Is that crazy or what? Make sure you secure him, and he's number 4 for me as a fantasy football sleeper. Moving on here. Let's go. I got a rookie here for you. The guy I'm talking about is Cam Akers. Again, people are sleeping on this guy. Why are they sleeping on Cam Akers? Listen, there's a ton of upside with Cam Akers. This guy's in a position where he could be the starter with the Rams. Now, Henderson, I thought, would have been the guy, but the draft proved that they don't believe in him. I think he had like 39 attempts, did really nothing last season. Cam Akers is a guy that is in a position to really succeed. He was a workhorse in college, and he can catch the ball in the backfield. Now, there's other guys, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, other guys I do love. Now, Taylor, I'm hearing, is going to be split in the backfield with Marlon Mack, which is BS because Marlon Mack sucks. But Cam Akers is a guy that I think could take the job, first, second week and be the workhorse with the Rams. Love the upside. You can get him 5th, 6th round. That's pretty impressive, and he's a solid fantasy football running back sleeper. The Rams clearly don't believe in Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers, target him. Great value. Don't sleep. Next guy here. Let's move on to quarterbacks. The guy I absolutely love here is Ryan Tannehill. Why do I love Ryan Tannehill? A guy that said he didn't like Ryan Tannehill when he played on Miami. A guy which I said gears to wow me, and I wasn't wowed, but he finally wowed me. Why did he wow me? Well, there's a couple different reasons why. Robust O-line. He's got Derrick Henry there. He's got some pretty decent receivers, but I think he's in a system with the Titans that really helps him. It protects him, and it gives him an opportunity to throw the ball. And the thing about him is, check this out. Ryan Tannehill, had he played, and he didn't play the first 6 games with the Titans, had he played the first 6 games, an average where he was averaging in and around 18 to 22 points per game, he was in and around that range. If you kind of project that out, he finished with 224 fantasy points. If you project that out, he would have actually finished as top 3 to 4 quarterback, just in and behind Dak Prescott. He would have had around 330 points if he had played the first 6 games, okay? So that's the type of ceiling we're talking about, but everybody is sleeping on Ryan Tannehill. Why? I'll tell you why. Because he finished 22nd amongst quarterbacks last year, which means that he's going to probably be 22nd amongst quarterbacks in the rankings this year. That's what the mainstream do. This guy could easily finish top 10 if he continues the way that he was last year. And again, based on last year, I'm seeing a ton of upside, a ton of ceiling, and a ton of opportunity for Tannehill. He's been paid. He's been incentivized. He has to take the reins. I like Ryan Tannehill as a backup quarterback that you could start or cover your bye weeks if needed, or if your main quarterback goes down. Love Tannehill as a backup with a starter potential, QB1 potential. That's how much of a ceiling this guy's got. And I'm liking the step up this year with A.J. Brown. Ton of upside, okay? All right, moving on here. The second quarterback I love here as a backup. Now, the thing is, when you look at guys with risk, like the next guy, Drew Lock, you got to look at upside, okay? So there's a ton of upside with Drew Lock. a ton of opportunity for him to succeed. Now, there is a lot of question marks, so we don't know how he's going to gel with the rookies, Jerry Jeudy and Hamler. We don't know how he's really going to gel with Fant because we haven't seen a big window of him performing. Now, when I look at any type of quarterback, I look at consistency. So I don't really draft quarterbacks that are relatively inconsistent, but as a backup, I would. I did that with Pat Mahomes a couple years ago, the year he broke out. I said, listen, got my ace quarterback. I don't know who it was that year. I think it was Matt Ryan. Then I backed him up with Pat Mahomes, and sure enough, it paid off for me that year. I ended up starting Mahomes over whoever I had that year. Same type of thing with Drew Lock. I think the ceiling is high. I think he's got a ton of weapons. I think Fant takes a step up this year. I think Jeudy gets a step up. Well, obviously he's a rookie, but I think he's going to do really well in fantasy if the volume is there. You know, there's a ton of upside here for this entire team. They got Melvin Gordon. It's a high-octane offense. And Drew Lock is a guy I did like coming out of college. He looked great pocket presence, great arm, great release, very smooth, very natural. I like the upside here for Drew Lock as a backup, okay? I want to emphasize that. All right, moving on. Number 8, Phillip Rivers. I mean, what you see is what you get, but this guy is being slept on completely. He's on the Colts. They've got an amazing O-line. They've got Jonathan Taylor there. They've got Hilton. They got the rookie Michael Pittman. I think there's going to be an opportunity for Rivers to really shine and be consistent. And the nice thing about him is he throws a lot. I mean, that's the nice thing about him. He is a guy that's going to throw the ball a lot, and he's made wide receivers great. Guys like Keenan Allen in fantasy production. I don't see that changing this year. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to perform, again, as a backup sleeper. Backup, guys. A guy you could put on your radar later, and he could be a backup to your starter, cover your bye weeks, injuries, or potentially start if he gets into the groove. I love Phillip Rivers as a backup, okay? People are sleeping on him. Another guy everybody's totally forgetting, this guy was a top 3. Guys, let me repeat this. A top 3 finisher in fantasy points in 2018, got hurt. The guy I'm talking about is Big Ben. Last year got hurt. There's rumors he is a little overweight. That's fine. I think he's going to get back into shape. He also led in passing yards. Guys, number 1 in passing in 2018. Passing yards, and number 1 in attempts with 675. And the passing yards was 5,129, let me remind you. Now, he doesn't have Antonio Brown, but he does have some great weapons in regards to Deontay Johnson, Juju, and the rookie Chase Claypool. Love Ben Roethlisberger as a backup with upside. Completely slept on, completely going undrafted, completely coming off, if anything, late in the draft. Everybody's sleeping on this guy because he's injured. Again, the recency bias kicking in. Capitalize on the weakness of others that is this recency bias and make sure you get him as a potential backup as well. Coming at number 10, Tom Brady. I mean, I think he's being slept on. This guy could be a top 10 quarterback with ease based on the weapons that he has. I think he's primed to really succeed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've got great weapons with Gronk coming back. They've got Evans. They've got Godwin. I can keep going here with Rojo and Keyshawn Vaughn. There's a ton of options there at the running back position that could catch the balls out of the backfield, give him some more fantasy points. I love Brady. And you can get him in around 7 to 9, typically in a 12-person league. Great value. Now, typically, he's being drafted as your starter, which is okay, but I've given you guys some good backups to back Tom Brady up if he's not performing up to your level. But I like him. I love him. I'd probably rather have Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, maybe. But Tom Brady, great upside this season, okay? Coming at number 11, let's move on to some wide receivers here. I'm going to rip through these. You guys can read the article below. Stephon Diggs, listen, he's a wide receiver 1 here. Clear-cut opportunity to succeed. I understand Allen's got some rapport with John Brown, Cole Beasley. I get it. And I'd like for Allen to throw the ball a little bit more in Buffalo. But Diggs is in a good position to succeed. He's a guy that demands the ball. And I'm assuming he's signed based on the fact that he will be the wide receiver 1, which is blatantly obvious based on the talent there. So Diggs is going to get the ball. He's a clear-cut wide receiver 1. And I think he's a big steal. He's coming off in around rounds 4 to 6. I mean, that's a steal. You're getting a wide receiver 1 and not paying first round price for it. And we've seen what's happened to first round guys throughout the years. Odell Beckham last year busted. Devontae Adams got injured, busted. So there's a lot of these wide receivers that bust, right? So Stephon Diggs is a guy that you can keep on your radar that's a big sleeper and you can get him for good value. Number 12, T.Y. Hilton, pretty obvious here. Get him in the 5th round, 6th round. Sometimes he comes off as early as the 4th, but not too often. I typically see an average ADP of around 5. I'm doing mock drafts, still a little bit early right now. If I can get him around 5'6", I'm getting a wide receiver 1 that's solid. I basically handcuff him. Yes, handcuff a wide receiver with Michael Pittman later. That almost guarantees me a solid wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 production, because now I've bought pretty much all of the stock with the Colts. And then, like we said, Rivers throws the ball a lot. Hilton's the guy I absolutely love. Speedster going into his 9th season. He's a veteran. He knows what he's talking about. Had a little bit of bad luck last year, played 12 games, and had a bad quarterback for fantasy throwing on the ball with Jacoby Brissett. Big upgrade at quarterback. If healthy, this guy's a top 10 wide receiver. Love the upside. Coming at 13, Brandon Cooks. Pretty obvious this guy is talented. Now, I'm just going to make a quick note here. He's not DeAndre Hopkins, but I will tell you something. With the void of DeAndre Hopkins being gone, with the Texans, you got a void of 150 targets potentially gone there, and Cooks is going to slide in there. The most versatile, diverse kind of wide receiver there. I think Fuller is more of a one-trick deep threat kind of pony, and he gets injured. Yeah, Cooks has had his share of concussion injuries and that type of thing, but if he comes back healthy, look for Cooks to really emerge. And again, you're getting potentially a wide receiver 1 for absolutely nothing in and around round 6, which is an absolute steal. Coming at number 14, this guy's coming off later, technically a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. 14 for me is Deontay Johnson. Love him, love the upside. And again, we talked about Big Ben making Juju and Antonio Brown top 10 receivers back in 2018. Same thing could happen with Deontay Johnson. The only thing is Claypool could also emerge. I've got him as a sleeper coming up. I'll explain why. But Deontay Johnson, who actually showed flashes last season, he had 92 targets, 58 receptions, 680 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Big Ben wasn't even there. There's promise there. There's upside there. We don't even know if Juju is the wide receiver 1. Juju could be a slot guy. Deontay, Claypool lining up outside. Deontay could be a prime target for Big Ben and has a huge ceiling, and you can get him for nothing literally like after round 7. It's absolutely insane. Coming at number 15, Mecole Hardman. The reason I like this guy, guys, it's going to be pretty obvious here. He's a speedster. He was drafted with the intention, in my opinion, that he was going to be the wide receiver 1 if Tyreek Hill had any more issues, off-field issues, and of course injury, which Tyreek Hill is susceptible to do yet again with the off-field issues and the injuries again. If that's the case, I think Hardman is the clear-cut wide receiver 2 based on youth, talent, speed. Again, I'd like to see more volume, but here's how I look at the Mecole Hardman situation. I look at it like this. Do I want to invest a second-round pick in Tyreek Hill, who's going to be volatile and going to have your boom-bust games? Or would I rather just pay nothing and get this guy as a wide receiver 4 or 5 later in the draft who's also going to have boom or bust type of games? So if you're going to roll the dice and have players that are going to boom or bust, why invest a second-round pick in Tyreek Hill when I can get Mecole Hardman late for free? It just doesn't make sense. You know, I'd rather just go Mecole Hardman than draft Tyreek Hill. It doesn't make sense any sense to draft Tyreek Hill in the second round, especially when I'm telling you guys load up on running backs early because there isn't a lot of running backs after round 5. You're pretty much SOL unless you get David Montgomery, but again, you have a big risk there. So 15 is Mecole Hardman, big time fantasy football sleeper 2020. Target him late. The other guy here nobody's talking about, which is insane. Daniel Jones now has a beefed up O-line, but the guy I'm talking about is Darius Slayton, the wide receiver to Daniel Jones, who's also a sleeper but is not included in this list. Listen, Darius Slayton is technically the wide receiver 1. I understand they've got Shepard who's banged up. If he comes back healthy, he could be the wide receiver 1. I get it, but he hasn't been healthy. And then you've also got Tate there. But listen, last year, Darius Slayton is actually the leader in receiving yards, 780 receiving yards. He's not being talked about. It's insane, man. I don't even understand why not. He is technically showing 83 targets on 48 receptions and 8 touchdowns, also leading in touchdowns with 8. So he led in touchdowns, led in receiving yards, and he's young. So he's not going to be like a spectacular guy from what I've seen, right? He's not going to be your Julio Jones. But again, this guy you're getting for absolutely free, and he could technically be the wide receiver 1. So that's another thing I want to emphasize for a fantasy football draft strategy, guys. When you are doing your draft, you get a ton of value at wide receiver. You're getting wide receiver 1s, rounds 5 to like 10. You're getting wide receiver 1 talent. So why wouldn't you grab Slayton later, you know, as a stash that could be your starter right in your roster? Again, the rapport is there, the improved O-line with Daniel Jones. My mind can't wrap around like how he's being slept on. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely love the upside with Slayton. Coming in at number 17, Chase Claypool. We talked about Big Ben. Don't need to go into how much he throws or how good he possibly is and how good he makes fantasy football wide receivers. But Chase Claypool is a guy, what is he, like 6'4", 238. The guy's a monster. And, he's drawing some comparisons to Martavis Bryant when Martavis Bryant was performing really well. He's also drawing comparisons to Megatron in regards to physical attributes and combine numbers. Claypool, he is being knocked a little bit on his, his pickup speed off the line, and also his route running is a bit knocked. They're calling him a little bit raw, but why do I believe scouts? He's on a good team with the Steelers. He's got Big Ben throwing the ball. I love Claypool, love the upside. And he's a guy you can get for pretty much free. And what I like doing in a lot of drafts is I'm going Deontay Johnson and getting Claypool later. So now I've got all of the stock minus Juju, who I think may be playing out of the slot anyway. So I've got Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So I'm pretty much locked and loaded there. Coming at number 18, TJ Hockenson, and number 19, Noah Fant. I'll do these guys in one shot here in regards to analysis. Listen, Hockenson, Fant, both drafted really, really high on their respective teams. The Lions got Hockenson early. The Fant did as well in the 2019 NFL draft. They're going to use him. That's the bottom line. Look at Hockenson. Stafford got hurt. If you look at Fant, Drew Lock wasn't in the groove till the end of the season. Ton of upside. Now, I think Hockenson's ceiling is a little bit higher because I think there's less targets there that are viable with the Lions. Whereas Fant, I think, also has a high ceiling as well because we don't know if Drew Lock's going to gravitate to him. So they both have a high ceiling, but in regards to target volume right off the bat at first look, Hockenson could get that because Fant is contending with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, whereas Hockenson's more competing with Golladay. Marvin Jones, I'm not that excited about, but I think Hockenson gets involved more. And I want to note something about Hockenson. He had 2 touchdowns in the first 4 games of the season, and then Stafford went down at some point. I can't remember exactly what week it was, but what I was seeing throughout the entire season was he was getting targeted quite heavily in the red zone, missed a few opportunities for some touchdowns, had a pretty bad season. But Hockenson, Fant, big sleepers, big value, and I always wait on tight end. These are 2 tight ends you can get later with upside. And the last tight end with major ceiling is Mike Gesicki. So I ended it off with tight ends here. Mike Gesicki, and here's a cool thing about him. He actually had 89 targets, 51 receptions, 570 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns in 2019 on an offense that was pretty much a disaster, or a team that was actually a disaster. Now you looked at a beefed up O-line. They've now got Tua there that could potentially get a start and could gravitate to Mike Gesicki. I like it. I mean, Parker's there. They've got some other receiving targets, but this guy is a guy that could emerge as a receiving target, as a red zone target, and I love the upside and the value in fantasy football drafts 2020. So there it is, guys. Read the article. I listed it below. Get the 16-round draft solution, and there are your top 20 sleepers, guys, for fantasy football. These guys, listen, I've dove deep. I've looked at these guys, and they're going to get a ton of volume. Now, a lot of people mention other names that are considered sleepers that, I just don't find being sleepers, like guys that are like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart that could emerge. There is certain players that could happen with, right? But I think it's just kind of a very, very rare situation where I see that happening. Now, I'm just going to pull up some of the depth charts here and give you a quick example of that where people say they're a sleeper. For example, I'll give you an example of this. Anthony Miller. Okay, yeah, maybe with the Bears, but years to wow me, and I'm not wowed. Not really sold on that. Deshaun Hamilton from the Broncos. People are saying he's a sleeper. I mean, there's so many targets there in Denver. Why would he get the volume over Jerry Jeudy and Sutton? Doesn't make sense. People are saying Devin Funchess. Maybe, but years to wow. I mean, I'm not wowed, okay? Danny Amendola. I mean, really, Amendola with the Lions. I think Jones and Golladay get the volume there. There's so many other ones that people think are sleepers I can give you, but I just don't see the upside with them. Josh Reynolds for the Rams, right? Again, I think sometimes they reach, but the guys I'm mentioning here are genuinely in a high ceiling, probable position to really break out or have a really solid season that people are sleeping on. I like to dive deep, but I also try to be realistic in the upside of the sleeper. So I'm very, very picky and choosy with the sleepers I get. I analyze depth charts, opportunities, and the talent around them and their overall talent to really construct my sleeper list, okay? Guys, leave a thumbs up, comment below. Love to hear your feedback on my sleepers. And of course, guys, make sure you guys get the 16-round draft solution and subscribe here to this #1 fantasy football podcast. Genuinely appreciate it. It means the world to me. Thank you for being here, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. And of course, guys, stay away from the consensus rankings. Be a lion. Don't be a sheep. I'll see you guys in the next video.